Hey, this is Kathy Perry, Corporate Energy Expert, and here today to help you understand why it's so important, why we need to be talking about burnout on our senior living teams. This is especially important if you are an executive director, a regional ops person, operations, human resources, because burnout can come and really affect how your business is operating. So stay till the end because there's going to be some resources that I'm going to give you that you can take back to your teams, use with your teams to help solve some of the issues surrounding burnout. Well, burnout is really just a word that I like to use for when someone is so maxed out, stressed out, worn out, that they're about ready to walk out. And that's the last thing you want on your teams. But teams do get tired, just like the title sounds like burn out. You know, the candle will eventually burn all the way down. And you don't want that to happen to your teams. So I'm going to give you some 5 things to think about in this video. And then again, stay till the end because I've got some resources you can take back and use for your teams. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because videos are coming out all the time with content that is easily digestible and easy for your teams to use. So first of all, thinking about burnout, you have to acknowledge it's real. You can't hide it. You can't push it away. It is happening. And the sooner we begin to acknowledge that both physical and emotional burnout is happening on our teams, we can start dealing with it. Because like I said, you don't want your people walking out just because they finally had enough. You need to acknowledge that it is happening. And second thing, one of the easiest ways to do it is to begin to bring burnout into your conversations. You know, everyone wants to feel like they are understood. And when you're frontline people, or if you have directors as your reports, have your ear just for a moment to be able to say, yeah, I'm burning out. It's really important. But they don't always like to drive that conversation because it might make them look like they're not showing up the way they should. So instead, you may have to drive the conversation. Start with an email saying, hi, how's everyone doing today? On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling emotionally? Are you emotionally burnt out? Are you physically burnt out? Really begin to bring it up. Where's everyone? Take the assessment, take the temperature. So once you start to feel everybody out, how they're doing, next, in the third step, is you can start to define what kind of burnout your teams are facing. Well, I already mentioned emotional and I mentioned physical. But let's be honest, there's also compassion burnout. You know, how much can one person give? How much can one person care? Sometimes we get burnout like that. There's also like regulatory burnout, and so many of us know, new regulations dropping weekly in the last couple of years. And it gets so to the point where you're just like, I'm done. I can't look at another brief. I can't think of another way I'm going to have to tell my people they're going to have to implement something new. That can wear you out. So start to dive a little deeper and say, where are people really feeling it? Ask. And then start to formulate a few tactics that they can use around those types of burnout. So now that volunteers may be able to come back into your communities, can some of that compassion, caring go to some of your volunteers? Could they start to take some of that load again? Or as far as regulations go, is just one team member really handling that? Could you start to spread some of that out? But now the fourth thing is really important, and it's about that some directors, some frontline people, maybe some of you, are feeling burnout because you just don't have the skills you need to do everything that is demanded of your position. So education is so important, but we haven't had the time, right? Just last week, I was on a call where I didn't prompt anything in my conversation on this Zoom call, And somebody actually put in the chat, we don't have time to learn anything new. The only time we have time for education is when it's regulatory or patient-centered. I've talked to people who have directors of nursing who have never had a leadership class, but yet have to take on those managerial roles. And if they don't know how to do it, if they can't do conflict resolution, correctly, well, that's going to cause some instability on the team, cause people to burn out, cause people to leave. So as difficult as it is to get that education in, now's probably the time to start. Now as things begin to wind down and we're getting a little bit away from so much day-to-day COVID, it might be time to start some of that education. I'm super excited because a little bit later in 2022, I am doing an amazing Power Up program, Power Up and Perform program for senior living professionals. And it's bite-sized, and your directors and your people who are in managerial level positions can log in, do it, and it's a great way to get education. More about that coming later. So you don't always have the skill set you need, and sometimes you can burn out. And then finally, your residents suffer when your teams are burning out. That's really kind of an obvious statement, we know, but we know what that snowball effect can look like when resident satisfaction goes down, right? We hear it from families, we might get a regulatory issue that pops up. We are here to serve the residents, and if our teams are burned out, maxed out, worn out, it's just not going to happen. So paying attention to where your teams are on this burnout scale are so important, because the last thing we want is to have residents or the people that we serve, the people who we care for, not getting what they deserve. So I hope these tips have helped you a bit, shed a little light on what burnout and how important it is. Please click in the links below. I'm going to have some resources, 7 tips on how to work through stress and burnout on teams. Follow me on LinkedIn because that's where I post new content. I try to come up with a resource every week. Sometimes it's every other week, but resources you can take back to your teams. And also that program coming later this year. There'll be more stuff about that. Thank you so much for taking time to watch this, and I'm looking forward to helping you power up in 2022. Thanks so much.